Alright, on this month's episode of Ask the Grizzly, the question was sent in, how is the fireman's carry throw used in submission grappling, judo, MMA? Well, we have a throw that is like the fireman's carry. Judo, we call it Kata, Guruma, which means shoulder wheel throw. Okay? And the application is a little bit different. You know, it's not like in pro wrestling where you stand the guy all the way up and toss him off your back. It's a little more slick and discreet than that. Okay? So the way we do this, you know, in a gi situation, lock up your standard single collar tie here, and you start by pulling your opponent onto his toes by rotating here to create your entry, and by curling here at the wrist so that he's off balance. Okay, as I do this, I drop, fall to my knee, and allow him to fall off of my shoulders. Again, the way this throw works, okay, I off balance, I drop, and you watch this knee. What I'm doing is I'm loading him here, looking up to the ceiling. When I drop this knee and touch my shoulder to the ground, he rolls over, and I pick up the side control, the hold down. So with today's modern rule set in judo, where you're not allowed to directly attack the leg at the hands, we have to do a modified version of Kata Guruma. Kata Guruma, because of the high crotch single portion of the attack, cannot be used in its purest textbook form, even though it's still a part of the throws accepted by the Kodokan. So the way we do this is we keep this grip on the sleeve, but instead of grabbing here and then passing to the high crotch shoot, we grab at the sleeve near the wrist with a pistol grip. So we still come up as if looking at the wristwatch and get the entry. Notice that I'm loading him using entirely his arm for leverage. And I finish in the same manner where I drop to the knee and allow him to spill off my back. At combat speed, this application of the throw will look as follows. I grab here, okay, shooting deep, and allow him to spill off. The no-gi version of this throw is very similar, okay, but it requires a little more quickness because you don't have the handholds of the gi to apply the technique. So you use the single collar tie or dirty boxing clinch setup. I have this overhooked, okay, because a lot of times your opponent likes to swim on you. So when he attempts to swim, I bite down here, grabbing at the tricep tendon, rotating up, coming to the single leg, okay, and as previously described, I drop to the knee, spilling, and pick up the hold down. Now, because you don't have the grips or the handholds, you're more likely to see counters where your opponent sprawls, stuffs you with the hand on the hip, etc. So we have a couple of possible counters to those setups. Okay, first being that when I come in here and he begins to sprawl on me, okay, I step over and slowly take him over back into the side control position. Okay. Also, I can still do the no leg grip version of this throw. Now with no-gi, you've got to be fast because when the hands get slick, all he's got to do is whip his arm out and he's gone. But with MMA, having the catch of the glove, you can use that catch of the glove to keep your grip. So I come one up, one under, okay, shooting deep, all right, and then drop it. Additionally, you'll notice that my leg positioning is a little different when I do the two-handed version where I'm not using the high crotch portion of the throw. Okay? Something that can be noted is that when I come in for this version of the throw here, if he begins to sprawl on me, I can grab, hook, drive to pick up the hold down. Those are just a few examples of how the fireman's carry throw also known as Kata Guruma, can be used in judo, jiu-jitsu, submission grappling, and MMA. Okay, so we had a question sent in about what are some weightlifting techniques that you can use to functionally improve your grappling game for judo or jiu-jitsu submission grappling. Okay, so there are a few lifts. There are hundreds of exercises, I'm sure, but I'm going to show you 3 techniques that, between my background in physical therapy and also physical readiness training through the Army, I feel like are really effective for creating functional power for a lot of the techniques that we use in grappling. Okay, the first one I'm going to show is the dumbbell squat. Now, a lot of people like to use the squat rack, you know, with the barbell across your shoulders. But see, you can only safely squat to about 60 degrees of flexion using that method, which means that for the rest of your range, you're not really receiving any benefit. Okay, if you use something like the leg press, you know, you're not getting the stabilization. You know, you're not really doing the movement the same way that you would do it in the case for, like, you know, shooting a double leg or some kind of hip entry throw. Okay, so the method that I recommend is doing the dumbbell squat so that you can go through your full range of motion and also have to exercise the grippers in your hands at the same time. Okay, so using the dumbbells, you'll notice that I have to get all the way down past 90 degrees of flexion, okay, to reach the dumbbells altogether. So when I stand up, I go through my entire range. I get strong throughout the entire range that I have available in my quadriceps. Okay, so you can easily progress this, you know, by using bigger dumbbells. You can use kettlebells. There are barbells, you know, where you step inside and you're able to lift it, you know, because it's like the frame. There are a lot of different things that you can use. Easiest way for me, just use the dumbbells. Notice when I go all the way down, it's the same motion that I would use for a shoulder throw. It's the same motion I would use for a hip throw. It's the same way that I would shoot in for a double or for some kind of single leg. Okay, so I'm able to use that training very effectively to improve some of my stand-up grappling game in terms of the strength of my quadriceps for functional lifting. Okay, so the next lift, all right, is the dumbbell power clean. All right, so again, this is going to use a lot of different movements that we use over and over again throughout grappling in different positions. So in this case, rather than doing like a Roman chairlift, I get into a deep horse stance like sumo, okay, to come here. So the starting position is with the weights kind of resting on the quadriceps, slight bend in the elbows, okay. So step one, I rotate up into the military press position. In that movement, I activate the external rotators of my rotator cuff. All right, as I press overhead, I'm using pectoralis minor and anterior deltoid, and also activating stabilizers in my back. I lower, and I use eccentrically the external rotators in my rotator cuff, and my biceps get the eccentric or slowing down the force of gravity portion of the exercise as I return to the start position. Okay, so external rotation of the shoulder, also activating the glutes, you'll notice my pelvis kicks in there. Anterior deltoid, pec major and minor, and tricep to press overhead. Eccentric of the tricep, eccentric external rotators and bicep, and I return to the start position. And that is the dumbbell power clean. Okay, so you use these motions anytime you're stepping in to grab for a single. Your arms get this for your doubles. Okay, you go into that external rotation position for shoulder throw, rote seonagi, tayatoshi. So these movements where you stabilize the rotator cuff, various parts of the shoulders, but also using the glutes to get the pelvis up underneath for the kazoosh, all gets used in judo, submission grappling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So the final lift I'm going to show as part of my answer to this question is the deadlift, okay, which is probably one of the gold standard lifts. It's one of the lifts used in the Olympic powerlifting competitions. This is truly a functional lift, okay, and I can tell you that my experience in the Army, having to lift things real fast, drag bodies in combat, you know, my experience as a physical therapist assistant working in clinic, having to help lift patients that are having difficulty sitting up, standing up, you know, walking by themselves. This is a good lift to have on board to strengthen you for those functional things. This functional lift also crosses over quite well into the competition environment with your various forms of grappling, be it wrestling, you know, submission grappling, judo, or the grappling components of MMA. Now, a lot of people, when they do this lift, the way they like to do it is they do like the Roman chair method, where they bend over at the waist and stand up as such. Now, it's a legitimate lift, but if it's not done exactly right, high risk of injuring your back, and you put more of the strain on your low back and less on your legs. So the way that I recommend doing this lift is more of the sumo deadlift. Okay, so how this varies is by spreading your feet farther apart, dropping your hara, your center of gravity, okay? Gripping the bar just inside of the knees, posturing up so that when I lift, it's my glutes that kick in as well as my quadriceps to lock my knees out to get this functional lift. And they also get the eccentric coming back down. Real important to maintain the upright posture. If your head drops, then you're going to start trying to use the small muscles alongside your spine to do this lift. And when you're lifting heavier weights, it's very dangerous. But you'll notice that this lift, once again, you can see where these movements are real good for different takedowns that we use in grappling. Also, very good posture when you're sitting in somebody's guard, trying to hold them out. Use these glutes, okay? Use these quadriceps to hold your stability, hold your base, pinch tight, okay? So again, spread the feet beyond shoulder width apart into a good old-fashioned horse stance, just like we learned in karate, right? Grip the bar, the inside of the knees, posturing up, keeping the spine straight, okay? So that when I lift, it's my butt, my glutes, and my quadriceps that do this lift, okay? Then slowly back down. Not using real ballistic snapping motions, it's a gradual lift. So I make sure that I get the full effect of both the concentric, overcoming the force of gravity, and eccentric portions of the exercise for maximum effect. Those are the 3 lifts that I recommend. You 3 sets of 10, whatever it is, break it up with sets of cardio to improve your strength for submission grappling, judo, and MMA. So the question was sent in, why did I choose judo and jiu-jitsu as my primary art over, say, a striking art like karate or taekwondo or kung fu or Muay Thai or Savate or something like this. Understand that, you know, many years ago when I started off my martial arts journey when I was 7, I got into boxing because that was what was available. You know, I had just got done seeing one of the Rocky movies and I thought that was really cool, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to know that feeling of, you know, raising that title over my head after 12, 15 rounds of boxing, and, you know, knowing that I was the best in the world at what I did. So for much of my childhood, you know, I was involved in boxing, kung fu, and arnis. I did not really get exposed, truly exposed to jiu-jitsu and the grappling side of the force until 2001, when I did the Modern Army Combatives familiarization course, which is part of basic combat training. And you know what that is, it's an 8-hour course where they teach you some basic grappling maneuvers that are part of skill level 1 combatives. Modern Army Combatives was put together based on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the assistance of Royce Gracie helping out the
the Army Rangers that were revamping the Army's hand-to-hand program. So they had just got done seeing the first Ultimate Fighting Challenge, the first couple of them. You know, it was still the bracketed tournament, and they saw this 175-pound man, you know, using these grappling techniques to very, you know, swift, soundly shut down these much larger opponents, and you know, put them away, you know, with what seemed like very little effort. So I got exposed to it and kind of realized that I seemed to have, you know, some natural ability. I already kind of knew some joint manipulation from the small joint portion of Kung Fu, which is called China. China means to control. So I was starting to learn things like Tai Nagi and wrist locks and some kind of shoulder manipulation kind of things. So the transition to Jiu-Jitsu just was very smooth. So when I got done with my initial entry training in the Army and I came back home, one of the first things I did was I got into the American School of Self-Defense under Professor Maynard in the American Combat Jiu-Jitsu program, which is part of the Kodokan Danzen Ryu family, which is, you know, Professor Okazaki immigrated from Hawaii and was the first person to teach Jiu-Jitsu to Americans. You know, founded the Danzen Ryu, and then when his students came to the mainland United States, the mainland half of the Danzen Ryu is the Kodokan. American Combat Jiu-Jitsu is a part of that family. My black belt is in that style. And, you know, it seemed to really suit my personality. I really enjoy the control and the decisiveness that comes from the grappling techniques. And something that I read that I really appreciated was something that B.J. Penn wrote in his book about how, you know, he had started out as a boxer and his father kind of forced him into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And what he realized was that, you know, one of the coolest things about Jiu-Jitsu is that you completely cut off all options, all opportunities of escape with these techniques. You know, once the chokehold is in place and it's locked on, it's done. Once the arm bar is there and it's applied, you know, it's game over. And, you know, when he compared it to the boxing, that was his prior experience, he remarked that, you know, with boxing, no matter how good you are, you know, no matter how good the person you're facing is, they always have that puncher's chance where they're going to get that one lucky punch in right on the button that's going to put you out, and all that skill and all that training almost becomes arbitrary because there's always that puncher's chance. But with grappling, with Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, you don't have that. You systematically cut off all avenues of escape. And I felt like that was a really good way of explaining, you know, the things that I've always kind of felt and sensed about Jiu-Jitsu since I started, you know, many years ago. So, and it was funny, you know, one of the original kickboxing instructors that I was working alongside at the first gym that, you know, I started teaching at as a civilian here stateside after I got back from Iraq, you know, he didn't like Jiu-Jitsu, he didn't like grappling, he didn't like anything where grappling may become an option like MMA or something like this. And he said the reason was that, you know, he felt like that, you know, if you got in with there as a superior grappler, there was nothing you could do. Whereas he felt like even if he was in a match against a superior striker, he still had a chance of landing that shot that would end the fight for him. So, you know, it's kind of like he, without knowing it, you know, seconded or, you know, provided chorus to what B.J. Penn wrote in his book. And so that, in a nutshell, is why it is that I chose to adopt Judo and Jiu-Jitsu as, you know, as my path, as opposed to other arts, because it's what works best for me.